is John from MTG Nexus with this week's Izzet Phoenix list. This is Javier Dominguez's list, top 37 list, I believe, from MC Barcelona. A couple people had made mention of this list before because of its unique take on having both Aria, Flame, and Pyromancer's Ascension in the main deck, and I figured I'd give it a spin because I don't think necessarily running these two side by side in the main deck makes much sense, but once we get into kind of the developments in the sideboard and such, we might see why that is the way it is. Primarily, I think because of the fact that there's 4 ley lines in the sideboard means you got to make some room for sideboard cards, and Aria Flame would normally be in the sideboard of a build like this. And something like maybe a Crackling Drake or something would be on the main deck, but because of the huge expected presence of Hogaak in that metagame, most decks were having some number of ley lines in there. 75 was the most played card at the MC, yet the deck still performed ridiculously well. So, part of the reason why many people believe Hogaak is going to end up banned. Anyways, beyond that, whenever you're playing Pyromancer's Ascension, most of your cantrips and such have to be 4-ofs, which is why it's a little bit interesting that things like Lava Dart, like Magsincle and Finalia Promise are all 1-ofs. Beyond that, all your cantrips are 1-ofs, so you can't really split like your Sleight of Hand opt as some people do with the Aria Flame build. So 4 Serum Visions, 4 Thought Scour, 4 Sleight of Hand, 4 Faithless Looting, 4 Metamorphose, 4 Bolts. Nothing too unusual here. 4 Thing in the Ice, 4 Arclight Phoenix, still the 2 Pyromancer's Ascension. The arguments for Pyromancer's Ascension, and we still haven't really had a chance to play it here on the channel too terribly much, is that it's another 2-drop threat. One of the things that people argue, especially in the control matchups and stuff, is if you overload on 3 mana threats, that your opponent has more time to set up for counter spells, etc. Finding discard spells for your things, etc. So having access to a 2 mana threat like Pyromancer's Ascension and Thing in the Ice, gives them less time to set up and find answers. That's one of the arguments for what's going on with Pyromancer's Ascension. It's not strictly worse than Aria Flame. It does set up a turn sooner. The requirements for setup are a little bit more strict. However, it is vulnerable to graveyard hate, which is very relevant in a format full of Hogaak and other graveyard-centric decks. Beyond that, your sideboard kind of gets condensed down when you have 4 sideboard slots here eaten up by Leyline of the Void. One interesting split is 2 copies of Saheeli and 1 copy of Narset. One thing I've noticed when playing the Tariq Patel list is Narset, while it can find your cantrips and your interaction spells and potentially Aria Flame, it does feel a little bit underpowered sometimes, especially if you're not playing the mirror match. A lot of the blue-white decks don't have a ton of cantrips in them anymore, or they're doing something like Cryptic Command during your turn, which means that Narset isn't really shutting them off from drawing cards. So the 2 copies of Saheeli, 1 copy of Narset might actually be correct. 1 copy of Abrade. I usually like to run 2 copies lately, but it's understandable why you can only afford to 1 run, especially when you're chewing up 4 sideboard slots. Fry is an interesting one. This helps to combat both the blue-white control matchup and is pretty reasonable in the mirror against Thing in the Ice. 1 copy of Anger of the Gods. Once again, got to make room with copies of Leyline of the Void. Same thing with Blood Moon. Blood Moon's a great card. It's gotten us a lot of spots and situations. Aria Flame as another tertiary win con when you got to board out some of your Pyromancer's Ascensions, and 2 copies of Spell Pierce and 1 copy of Force of Negation. So it looks like from Tariq's list, the big cuts were like 1 Blood Moon, 1 Anger of the Gods, 1 Force of Negation, and then like 1 of the other interactive spells. So lots of costs here for running Leyline of the Void, but if you want to be Hogaak, you kind of got to make room. Ravenous Trap has proven to be a little bit unreliable against the deck, as they often can hold priority long enough to just cast Hogaak, and your graveyard hate spells don't matter. Surgical Extraction in the main deck still a nice hedge, but beyond that, this is Javier's list, and let's get into some matches. Hey, we're back for match number 1. I do want to apologize for the delay in the videos. Been some family issues this week. My mom has been having issues with her back and hip, so I've been helping out a little bit more around parents' house. But between that and working full-time has been a little bit difficult to keep up on the necessary video content, so I did want to apologize for taking the time that was needed, but, you know, family before anything else, you know. This hand's interesting. We have no setup cards other than Faithless Looting. We do have 3 of our payoff cards, so I think we're going to keep here. But, I mean, any cantrip kind of gets us going with this hand, and we do have Faithless Looting to dig. Should be interesting to see which one of these actually makes sense. Surgical Extraction in case we're against a Hogaak deck. Looks like we are not against a Hogaak deck, though. So the question is, am I supposed to cantrip here? I don't feel like I'm supposed to. Casts Opt. Kept a 1-lander. Makes me wonder what deck we're up against then. So which one would I rather have potentially killed here? I think gonna run out Phoenix here. If they have a spell snare, I'd rather that one get spell snared. And opponent just scoops. Alright, so that makes me think we're in the mirror match, which means I'm probably interested in Narset. Alright, so bolts, and the pierces, and I don't know what else I'd be interested in. I guess the Fry would be good. This is in fact the mirror match. Probably the second copy of Aria Flame. Ascension's probably fine. What other cut with Lava Dart? Just in case this is the mirror match. Could be completely off base, but either way, even if we are against a control deck, Aria Flame and Fry are both reasonable against the mirror match, so off to a weird start again. Once again, I'm feeling like before I start recording, maybe I'm supposed to do like a warm-up match or something, because I feel like my decisions and thought processes aren't necessarily crisp at the beginning of these videos. Like, I've been noticing when I've been playing like a lot of the burn on the other leagues here on the channel that like I seem to be a little bit slow to pick up the paces at the beginning of the videos. Like, I've been losing a lot of match number 1s just from like either poor decision making or something along those lines. So maybe I'm just supposed to. It has disconnected. Alright, well, hopefully they'll get back in time to sideboard. But if this is the mirror match, it's an interesting little take on things, but being up a game because our opponent, you know, unfortunately had a poor draw. But I'm trying to think of what other deck would run Island Opt that would concede after seeing a thing in the ice. There aren't, like, the actual hard control decks would wouldn't concede after one game, so I'm not sure why our opponent would concede after that, but regardless. Guessing trying to conceal information, but I think this hand's fine in the matchup. We have an answer to a thing in the ice. We have a Spell Pierce. I think I'm going to Serum Visions, looking for a little bit more information here. Second copy of Thing in the Ice doesn't feel terrible. The question is how many setup cards exactly do I want? I think I actually have to bottom that. We're looking for more cantrips, more stuff going on. Yeah, figured as much. So if they do have Thing in the Ice, we can go Flame Slash into, or hold up Spell Pierce plus Flame Slash. Problem is, if I just jam here, like, then we're vulnerable as heck to Aria Flame. It's not a card I particularly am interested in losing to. It does feel like the kind of hand my opponent kept, too. Okay, just kidding. I have no idea what's going on now. Some type of fairies list, maybe? I'm going to take the damage just because I want to know what the heck's going on over there. And I'm more interested in the knowledge of what's my opponent's got going on. Apparently the answer is a whole lot of lightning bolts. So they're just Blue-Red Delver, it looks like. Interesting. Not precisely what I was expecting, I guess, but do that so we know what's going on with our opponent's deck. Apologize for the snap tool showing up. Goes for the double bolt play. Sure, that one resolve. Really sucks to spew that much value. And our opponent just scoops. Alright, well, really fast scoop against a Blue-Red Delver deck, but, you know, sometimes when your opponent's deck can't deal with a Thing in the Ice, it did seem a little bit premature to scoop, but off to a pretty fast start here. So we're 1-0 against Blue-Red Wizards. We're back for match number 2. It's finally starting to get light enough out that I can show my face. This hand's interesting. I think I'm going to keep it. Obviously, you keep most Izzet Phoenix hands that have cantrips and such, but interesting hand in terms of ascensions and such. This is a card that I'm somewhat interested in seeing in action here. Finale of Promise is an interesting card. Don't think I'm interested in that. I'm gonna bottom Finale here, looking for more similar copies of spells. We're just gonna try to land Ascension next turn if we don't get Thought Seized here. Sorry, Inquisitioned. That's unfortunate, but Pard plays. Yep. I'm just gonna pass turn. Surgical Extraction could be relevant against something like Lingering Souls. This could be, I guess, Mardu Shadow would probably be my biggest guess here as to what's going on. Like, losing Ascension here really kind of sucks. Looking for another copy of... Alright, that's not a bad one. Yes, I'm surgically extracting your... Alright, so they have Path to Exile, so this is a Pyromancer list with Skelementals, Monastery Mentors. Looks like they were trying to set up Monastery Mentor next turn. Unfortunately, it looks like they're going to succeed in doing. Especially since I speed off the bolts. Whole bunch of unearths. Yeah, not terribly exciting here. Yep. Unsurprising here. Gonna get hit by a Thought Seize next turn, which is annoying. Ironically, they're probably gonna have to take Flame Slash here. Yep. Card's definitely dangerous. Good old Monastery Mentor. They have an Unearth. That would be very unfortunate if they did. question is do we want to bring in... Of course they do. Alright, and we're just dead here. So, do I bring in Late Line of the Void against their plan? Probably interested in Saheeli's and Anger of the Gods, Blood Moon, Aria of Flame. Some consideration for those, some consideration for Narset, some consideration for Spell Pierce, some consideration for Leyline of the Void. Probably going to board those out just in case they're bringing in further graveyard hate. Surgical Extraction is interesting. I honestly think I'd rather have Leyline against them. Just to shut off that unearthed nonsense. Did we see Lingering Souls in their list? I don't think we did. It's not particularly relevant. Try it like this. This hand's fine. We're not going to do anything until turn 2 anyway, so if they take our thing in the ice, we have a chance to look for other interaction. Thing in the ice, obviously not guaranteed to just end the game like it did against our blue-red Delver opponent, but still a pretty solid card overall. Yep. There goes Thing in the Ice, most likely. Or I guess if they have a Path to Exile, they're not going to... They might take the Bowl or something. Nope. And I forgot to play my land like a genius. Especially if we get hit by a Skelemental here, I'm not going to be very happy. Because I could have had Bold up here. Nope, just a Seasoned Pyromancer. Just a Seasoned Pyromancer. Nope, not even remotely respecting Blood Moon, it looks like, so... Should have played Arya this turn, so... Do you have an answer to Arya Flame? Ball, sure. Even if they have another Unearth here. Perhaps I'm just supposed to believe in the surgicals over the ley lines that we really don't want to see now. Like, these Unearths are cool, but they're a little cute. The chem ball, sure. I think it would just attack first, but whatever. Paying costs, huh? Sure. Should have done that the other way around. Guess in the end it really doesn't matter. Our opponent has a Skelemental here, well played I guess. Oh, just recasting Seasoned Pyromancer. Lightning bolt up to answer their nonsense. Faithless looting in the yard to flash back next turn. Sure, a little late on the party on that one. And should have taken that other Phoenix instead of the land, obviously. Lots of mistakes in this game. For some reason I had Serum Vision stuck in my head instead of Sleight of Hand. We just leave everything back, that way we don't randomly die to a Skelemental, which I'm not even sure is still in their deck, but I'd rather not take that chance. Sure. So obviously the ley lines are not the be-all end-all in this matchup because of wear tear. So is it possible I'm supposed to bring back in surgicals? Pretty sure this is probably dead, right? So much graveyard hate. Oof. Sure. So should lock up the game, right? Guess that doesn't technically lock up the game right now. Seriously, you've been sitting on 2 bolts this whole time? Sure. That's kind of obnoxious. Alright. Lost to Mardu Unearth. Can't really call it Pyromancer, can you? It's got Mentor and Seasoned Pyromancer. So, interesting build, but does feel a little bit weak in the current format with a bunch of graveyard hate with 4 copies of Unearth, but yeah. More power to our opponent there. They got the win. This has been John for MTG Nexus with match number 2. Hey, we're back for our 3rd match with Javier Dominguez's Pro Tour list. This hand is interesting. I think we keep it. A lot of... I mean, deck surgicals. Hopefully this is... looks like it might be the mirror match. Yep. I think we just hold up double bolt here. If they try to flip the thing next turn, we can potentially gun it down. Hopefully they don't have Aria Flame here. That was the one thing that punishes us from doing that, huh? Guess we got too cute with our... If we would have gone bolt, bolt, surgical, I think we would have been in a lot better shape. At this point, we just need to try to go all out aggro here. Don't think it's very likely to succeed in the face of what they got going on, but hey, at least try, right? At least if they try to pitch some Phoenixes, we have the answer to that. Kind of sad, because it looked like we had a decent chance to end the game on the spot if I wouldn't have been so cute. So the drift, good to know about. They have bolt here. It's kind of whatever. And I'm making all kinds of mistakes today. Opponent shouldn't have given us that information. Alright, so Lightning Axe in the main, Arclight Phoenix. They're the Aria Flame build. Any other information we can glean here? Echoing Truth. Should have played correctly, I discarded the Arclight Phoenix, so. Let's see, sideboarding here. Bring in the Spell Pierce. Actually, does he? Yeah, he brings in the Spell Pierces. Bring in the Narset. And probably the Fry and the Aria Flame. Go down what? I guess can leave the Ascensions in. Finale might be okay. Cards do we cut here? Bolts in the Lava Dart. Leyline of the Void is just too cute. Like, they have Surgicals, which is fine, but they didn't see Ascension out of us, so if they have Leyline in the sideboard, it's unlikely they're bringing it in. This hand seems reasonable. Makes our Sinkhole that much worse. Don't think you bring in Leyline against the mirror match, but what do I know? See if you have the Spell Pierce. Multiple ley lines. Alright, so we obviously don't bring in, try to go down on the graveyard interactions we can. Maybe we try bringing in Saheeli here. The only promise is one pitch. What's the other pitch there? Is it Sinkhole or is it Spire Bluff? Probably Spire Bluff. Like, I could down tick Narset, but If they have bolt, it gets obviously a lot worse. And given the fact that they're not necessarily following conventional, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that this turn. It's a pretty good draw here. Wow, that's a hand. Like, I'm not sure why they haven't just double bolted, Narset yet, but whatevs. Now they have to decide where those bolts are going. I think we're in bad shape here, but yeah, I'm very willing to make this trade off, obviously. Hopefully this is just Crackling Drake and not another... Nope, Arclight Phoenix, that's unfortunate. have Surgical and Leyline in hand. Stay back on the defensive for now. Sure. That's a bit frustrating. It's kind of funny that our opponent went so heavy on the graveyard hate, though. Doesn't feel like you're supposed to be bringing in Leyline, the Void, and the Mirror match, but hey, what do I know? Anyways, this has been John for MTG Nexus with match number 3. Yeah, we're back with match number 4. Been this hand's a lot of lands. Still think we keep it. Izzet's a redraw. As long as Thing in the Ice resolves. Aggressively mulliganing. I think I've been potentially too conservative this league. We've gotten burned out a couple of times by opponents being, like, play lines, maybe me being too passive, plus making some small errors here and there. Alright, Tron. Yay, Tron. Guess on a mulligan to 3, theoretically we have a chance, or mulligan to 5, we have a chance. Till our opponent goes Tron land into third Tron piece here. Moving on. Don't have a lot to bring in this matchup. We have Blood Moon, Force of Negation, Spell Pierces, maybe a Braid against cut the Sinkhole, cut the Flame Slash. Probably want Aria Flame in. Try it like that. We were on the draw. Our opponent had turn 3 Tron. And even if they didn't have a payoff for a turn or two, it was unlikely we'd be able to kill them quickly enough, especially when we don't have any disruption in the main deck. That's why I conceded there. Number 1, it also potentially concealed some information. All our opponent saw was Scalding turns. They don't know if we're like blue-white control, if we're Phoenix deck, and it's pretty reasonable. I think I go turn 1 Serum Visions. We gotta find a third land for that Blood Moon. Especially since it's our only copy of Blood Moon in the main deck. Problem is, we're taking our entire third turn off, so we're not advancing either the Ascension game plan or the Thing in the Ice game plan. So, we bottom both here. Thing's the faster clock overall. Anyways, I had a couple play lines here where, Relic's kind of whatever. That's why maybe it's not a terrible thing that, we're not relying on the Ascension plan here. There's a Blood Moon, do the Nature's Claim. Guess we'll find out if you identified the right deck or not. Wow. Yep. I think we're keeping a Braid for O-Stone only. It's being a bit of a slightly awkward position, but just hold up a Braid here. Looks like they're planning on trying to O-Stone us. Sphere's fine. Once again, very awkward. Let's force our opponent to make some actions, shall we? Force them to pop the Relic. Okay, there's 5 lands. Thragtusk would be annoying, but it's not the end of the world for us. Yeah, that's fine. Action stirrings. So you don't seem to have another Thragtusk. Okay, forest, sure. Just want that off the board. Two, three, four, five, six. So they could have Karn next turn, which is annoying. I mean, what else are we gonna do? I can't play blue spells now that they could potentially have Karn next turn. Sure. Guess Karn the Great Creator would be annoying. A lot of things would be a lot better if we had a second island right now. But I do think we would have been blown out of this game if we wouldn't have had another copy of Blood Moon, or one copy of Blood Moon here. Mookie's Ascensions can definitely go out of the deck, but I don't know what we'd even bring in their place. Like Saheeli maybe, but that even feels like a terrible... Maybe Surgical Extractions to pair with Thought Scour perhaps. All those just seem really, really narrow. Took a long time to think about that, friend. Ugin or O-Stone would probably be the worst here. Still have Lightning Bulls out, I guess, which is a positive. Yep, Worm Coil's annoying. Fortunately, it doesn't really matter. And on the sideboarding. Like, the problem is, what do we even bring in the place of the Ascensions here? Our set stops their cycling, maybe. Surgical pairs with Thought Scour, but that's like a 2-card combo. These cards don't do anything. Healy is more for mid-range grindy matchups. Go for the full Hail Mary value, I guess. This is, of course, this is the hand they start with 7 cards in their hand. It's one mountain, man. Guess we keep, hope to hit lands that are relevant. Seems about right. For a Tron opponent, they're taking an awful long time to think. Oh. Interesting. We miss a land drop. They get to do their thing. Seems unnecessarily risky. Sure. Then we get Karned, and then we can kind of... Alright, well, that was a fun game. Anyways, we'll be back in a bit with match number 5. Anyways, we're getting ready for match number 5. So we've had several decisions there that were a little. There were some straight up punts, misclicks. The one game where I forgot to play a land on turn 2 didn't actually come back to bite us, I don't think. But in that same game, I missed taking a Arclight Phoenix because for some reason I thought I was casting Serum Visions instead of Sleight of Hand. And we had the one line set up where it was possible for us to double bolt a thing in the ice and then surgical it, and I'm just like, oh no, that's not the right play. And it turned out that, yeah, that was probably actually the right play. Because they end up having a second thing in the ice. Guess we'll top a Arclight Phoenix. Since we don't currently have any of our other game plans going on. Okay, so let me guess, I'm going to get Hogaak now. Blood Gas out of the yard. Satyr Wayfinder, Vengevine, Gravecrawler, Hogaak. It's quite the hand. So they were going to get to Sesame Street us next turn. So a whole lot going on, unfortunately. We are really needing to find a copy of Faithless Looting here. Go ahead. Don't gack us, bro. Or Vengevine us, or that type of nonsense. Yep. 2 lands, sure. So we're gonna get Hogaak this turn. Plus Vengevine. Alright, so all the funsies, ley lines, anger. We want any of this other stuff. Blood Moon could potentially cheese them a little bit, but is that really worth? Maybe. Or would I cut the Flame Slash? Do I keep a non-leyline hand? Without a thing in the ice? No. Do I put on the bottom here? They have their own ley line of the void. Sure. In the ice was a good draw. Yep. Jeez. You have a Hogaak. Alright, so disappointing end to a very disappointing league. So my takeaway from this, I guess I'll do a wrap up here in a second. Just do it now. Takeaway from this league is you don't want to be on the Pyromancer's Ascension build of the deck right now at all. Way too many people are bringing Leyline of the Void in against you. The mirror matches even bringing it in against you, even though theoretically the cards they saw, they probably shouldn't have brought it in. Lots of mistakes, lots of loose keeps. Need to practice with the deck a lot more. Haven't really had a huge chance to play the deck all week. Haven't really even goldfished hands with the list that I have in play, which is Tariq Patel's list. Talking about some decision points. I wanted, going back to the one game where in the mirror match where our opponent had Thing in the Ice and I had double bolt and surgical extraction. I wanted my opponent to potentially burn some resources to try to flip Thing. They instead had a second Thing to punish us. Maybe it was just correct to double bolt and surgical. That second game against Mardu Pyromancer, it's possible a couple different things I could have either mulled harder for Leyline in the Void, and some of their advantage with that Unearth package would have been negated, or perhaps been make sure I clicked on grabbing Izzet Phoenix, we probably would have gotten game 2. It wouldn't have gone as long as it did with our opponent having multiple copies of Chemball and kind of burning us out that way. And me going for an attack that I thought was lethal, and then realizing the attack wasn't lethal because Chemball threw off the bolt math. Just a lot of little errors and a lot of uncertainties, maybe partially by playing lists I'm not familiar with. I know there are places where Pyromancer's Ascension is a powerful card, and I know Aria Flame is a turn 3 card, but I don't think Pyromancer's Ascension is where you want to be. Not when people are bringing in ley lines against you. One of the big things about the Aria Flame build that Jerry and Tariq kind of pushed was the fact that Aria doesn't care about any of those things. Now, granted, a lot of our opponents, like the Mardu Pyromancer opponent, brought in Wear Tear, so obviously they're aware of the Aria of the Flame plan. I think Phoenix has gotten a little bit worse in the face of the fact that our opponents are aware of the Aria Flame plan now, but they're still bringing in Graveyard Hate. And I think burning that many sideboard slots for Leyline in the Void when I think Hogaak's just such a nightmare and really needs banned, for being completely honest. Doesn't feel like burning that many sideboard slots to potentially make a matchup close is worth it. I think you just take your lumps in that matchup and then have access to things like the second Force of Negation, the second Blood Moon, so you actually have a chance against things like Tron. I don't know. Skewing your deck that much to fight one matchup, especially when the Surgicals and the Ravenous Traps had other uses besides just the Hogaak matchup, whereas Leyline, if you don't have it in your opener, it's just so bad. And they bring in anti-Graveyard Hate anyway. I don't know. A lot of mistakes, a lot of little misclicks, a lot of risky hands. Like third game against Tron, we kept that mountain hand. I think moving forward, I'm going to cut the second mountain from my list. There's been quite a few times I've been punished by having that second mountain in my list. Sometimes it's fine to be able to fetch up a mountain, but I think moving forward, Pyromancer's Ascension is just a no-go until after Hogaak gets banned. Too many Leyline in the Voids running around. It takes up too many sideboard slots to have another copy of Aria Flame. I think 2 Saheelis over the second Narset might be correct. And Fry's an interesting tech, obviously. Magmatic Sinkhole gets a lot worse in the face of all the Graveyard Hate as well. So maybe the 1-1 split on that and Flame Slash is fine. I'm trying to think what else this league taught me besides being more careful with my clicks sometimes on Magic Online. Just a lot of little things, like the second mountain probably should be a Steam Vents. Ascension just needs to go for now. It's just not good in the current format with Hogaak running around too much and people sideboarding Leyline in the Void against us all the time when that card was almost a complete joke in the face of Aria Flame. Beyond that, I don't think there's too many other comments I have this week. Once again, I apologize for a couple sloppy plays there. I think the more overall thing was learning what changes kind of need made to the deck. Pyromancer's Ascension, I still want to see it get its chance to shine, but we really haven't had that opportunity. Just too many Graveyard Hate cards running around, too many... I don't know. Doesn't feel like this version is quite as consistent as the Tariq list. Maybe that's because I'm more familiar with the Tariq list, what game plans I should be trying to execute, and these Ascension things just kind of throw me off a little bit. I think with Drake's version, I got a little bit bailed out because Crackling Drake is such a busted card if you untap with it. but I'm not a huge fan of Ascension here. Yeah. So not a huge fan of Ascension in the face of all the graveyard heat. Some of the other stuff, like trimming the mountain for their steam vents, or some other, maybe even a fiery Izzet. That's all I got this week. It was interesting to take this beating. There was actually some lessons to be learned, but anyways, I'm just kind of rambling anyway. So, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. I apologize we couldn't have a better record, but we did learn some lessons. And as always, thank you for joining the channel. And if you like what you're seeing, please consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up, and leaving a constructive comment down below.